This video will address graphing lines in slope-intercept form. So y equals mx plus b is this form. Remember, m is the thing times x. It is the slope. The slope does not have x in it. The slope is the thing times x. And then the thing by itself, in this case b, is the y-intercept. All right, so we have mx plus b, or y equals mx plus b. So if we look at this first line here, graph the following line. Y equals 2/3 x plus 1. So if we identify this, what is m? M is the thing times x. There's m, that's 2/3. And what is b over here? B is plus 1, or just 1. All right, so it's in that form. We come over here and say, okay, look, this thing is in slope-intercept form. So we use m and b. And again, we said m was what? 2/3, right? M is the thing times x right here, the thing times x. And b is what? B is this. This is b, right? The plus 1. So we can just write 1 in our blank for b. So note at the bottom here, we must start with b. See, we must start with b. That's here, that's our 1. We must start with b since that is a point on the graph, and then apply the slope using rise over run from b. If you only know the slope, you cannot graph a line, because the slope only tells you how 2 points on a line relate to each other. So you must know a point, and then if you apply the slope from that point, you will be back on the line. All right, so we need to apply the slope using rise over run here. All right, so b is 1, and remember, your y-intercept is always up or down. If your y-intercept is positive, it's up. If your y-intercept is negative, it's down. We're not going right and left here. That's the x-intercept. We're not using x-intercepts when we graph using the slope-intercept form. We only use the y-intercept, and then from that point, we apply the slope. So look, I want to focus on this rise over run bit right here, okay? Rise over run's a fraction, rise over run. So here, this is my rise, and this is my run, okay? So my rise is 2. So because I talk about rise, I always go up if I can, and then I'm going to run, in this case, to the right 3 because I have a positive slope. Okay? So here I have a positive slope. Positive slope is either up and right, or it's down and left. The reason is, this is a positive, and this is a negative and a negative. And if you divide 2 positives, you get a positive. If you divide 2 negatives, you also get a positive. So with a positive slope, you can either go up and then right, or you can go down and then left. Okay? You can either do up and right or down and left. So I'm going to choose to go up and right here. So from this, I go up 2 units, and then I go right 3 units, and I get a point right here. So up 2, right 3 takes me to this point right here. That's if I go up 2 and right 3 units. What if I did go down 2 units and left 3 units? See, down is a negative number, so that would be like -2. And to get a positive slope, I'd need to go -3. So if I go down 2 and left 3, guess what? Here's a point, and I'm still on my same line there. All right, so I can go down 2 and left 3. So let me put that point there, back there, down 2 and left 3. And then again, if I draw my line now, I go through my points, and I really only need 2 of these points. I could have just used this point and done it, or just the point there, that x, and that x. I could have done just those points, all right, and still graphed my line. So start with b, the y-intercept, in this case 1, so it's up 1 from the origin, and then from that point I go up 2 and right 3, or down 2 and left 3 for a positive slope, get my second point, and then I just graph my line. I graphed an extra point here, but it was to show you that it is the same thing. So let's look at another line. Y equals -3/2 x plus 4. So if we look at this again, we have m, right? We have y equals mx plus b. Here's my m, and here's my b, right? So let's look at this again. We have slope-intercept form, so use m and b. This is the most efficient way to graph something in slope-intercept form, is to use m and b. So in this case, my m is -3/2, and my b is what? 4, right? We said m M is here, negative 3/2, the thing's times x, does not have x in it. And here's b, right? B is the thing by itself there. So M is negative 3/2, b is 4. So again, we must start with b, which in our case this time is what? 4. So if I come over here to my grid, where do I go? That's right, I go up, because my y-intercept is always up or down. And since 4 is positive, I go up 4 units. So I start at b, since that's the point on my graph, and then I do what? I apply the slope as rise over run. So here's my rise, and here's my run. And remember, I'm always going to go up if it fits on my grid. So if I look here, 1, 2, 3, I can go up 3 units here, okay? If I couldn't, I would have to go down, all right? So with a negative slope, my slope is negative. I want to talk about rising 3 units, and then I'm going to run to the left 2 units because it's negative, okay? So with a negative slope, I'm either going to go up and then left, or I'm going to go down and right. So with this one, this was my negative, and with the down and right, this was my negative. So for a negative slope, the only way to get a negative number is to have either a positive over a negative or a negative over a positive, right? They can't both be the same sign or it will be positive. So the negative slope is either up and left or down and right. Right, up and left or down and right. So here, I'm going to choose to go up and left. I'm going to choose to go up and left from my point 4 here. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to go left 2 units. I'm going to end up right here, right? This is going to be up 3, and then there's my negative with my 2. I'm going to go 2 units to the left, and that's where I get my negative slope, because I went up with a positive 3 and left with a negative 2. I could have gone down. I could have gone down 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then 2 units over, and guess what? Now that's on the same line, right? But I'm not going to put all those extra points on here this time. I just need 2 points. I have 2 points, so now I'm going to draw my line through those 2 points, extend it out further, put arrows on the end of it because all lines go on forever, so we need arrows on the end of them. All right, and there's my line, y equals negative 3/2 x plus 4. Again, I start with b right here, and from that point, I apply my slope. I go up 3 and left 2 and get my other point right here, and then I connect my dots with the line, extend it through, and put arrows on the end of it. All right, so here we are only using the y-intercept. We are not using an x-intercept at all. Now, sometimes when you put the y-intercept and you apply the slope, you end up on the x-axis, and I won't say accidentally, but it just is a coincidence that you get the y-intercept, but you are not looking for the y-intercept. All right, so let's talk about a scenario that's a little bit more complicated in my opinion, because if we look at this one, this is still y equals mx plus b. So if I look at this, here's m. M is what? 4. And what is b? B is negative 3 this time, okay? So the negative 3, I mean, that's a negative sign, but it's still b. But the m being a whole number or an integer, if it's negative, it's not a whole number, it's an integer. M being an integer makes thinking about rise over run a little bit more challenging. So again, let's look at this. This is in what form? This is in slope-intercept form. So let's use m and b. Well, we just said here's m right here, right? M is what? 4. That's right. Don't put the x in there, right? It's just 4. And then b is the thing by itself here, this negative 3. So b is negative 3. Again, we must start with b, which is what in this case? Negative 3. So where do I go for negative 3? That's right, I go down. It's on the y-axis. It's either up for positive or down for negative. So I'm going to go down 3 from the origin. 1, 2, 3. That's where I go down 3. And from that point, now I need to apply my slope. But wait a minute, if I'm applying the slope of rise over run, I don't have a fraction right here. So that's what I mean with this last statement right here. If m is an integer, that's what 4 is an integer, right? Think about the slope as being what? Over 1. So what I want to do, I want to come out here in a thought cloud, and I put 4 over 1. And now for rise over run, this is my rise, and this is my run. So I'm going to go up 4 and right 1 unit. That's because it's positive. So Again, I'm going to choose to go up because I use the word rise as long as it fits on my grid. And here, 4 units up, if we look, is 1, 2, 3, 4. It fits on my grid. The other thing I want to mention is, see, we went across the 0 there. You still count that as a unit. So you go up 4 units, and then we go to the right 1 unit. So here's my new point right here. So let me make rid of those tick marks here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then right 1 unit is right here. Okay? What can you also do with a positive slope instead of up and right? That's correct. You can go down and left because down is a negative value and so is left. Down and left are both negative values, and a negative number divided by a negative number turns out to be a positive number, hence a positive slope. So you could go down and left if it fit on your grid. And if going up didn't fit, you would have to do that. All right, so here I have 2 points. I went up and right for my slope, but I had to know how far to go right. And any whole number is over what? 1. And so that's why I put this in a thought cloud. You would never want to answer 4 over 1. If your teacher asked you, what is the slope of this thing, you would say 4. You only think about it as 4 over 1 if you need to apply rise over run. So then here, I come through here and I just extend my line out and put arrows on the end of it, and I have graphed this line. So let's look at one more of these. Graph the following line. Y equals negative 5x minus 6. And again, here's my m. My m is times x, negative 5. My b is negative 6. Okay, remember the plus or minus sign goes with the number that follows it. So that negative in front of the 5x goes with the 5. The negative sign after the x doesn't go with the x or the 5. It goes with the 6, right? So here, again, we are in what form? Slope-intercept form. So guess what? We're going to use m and b. Remember, when it's in slope-intercept form, the most efficient way to graph this line is to use m and use b, the slope and the y-intercept. There is no better way to graph these lines. This is the best way. So then m, remember this is m, so negative 5 is m, and then b is the thing by itself here. So there's b, so negative 6 is b. All right? So again, we must start with b. In this case, what is b? Negative 6. So where do I go for negative 6 being little b? That's right, we go down from the origin 6 units. So all the way down here, there's little b. And from that point, how do I apply my slope of rise over run? Well, again, I'm going to come out here in a little thought cloud, and I'm going to put negative 5 over what? 1, right? I'm going to think about it as being over 1 because it's an integer, right? Negative 5 is an integer. So let's think about it as being over 1. This way I can have my rise and my run. So here I'm going to rise up 5 units unless that doesn't fit on my grid, and then I'll go down, and then I'm going to go left 1. If I go up, I'm going to go left 1 unit because my slope is negative. The other thing that I can do with a negative slope, if I were to go down 5, that takes my negative sign with the 5, so then I would go to the right 1 unit. So I can either go up and left or down and right. So here, if I tried to go 5 units down, look, I can only go 1 unit down. By the time I get to my second unit, I'm off my grid, so I can't go down. I must go up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 1 unit to the left. So my new point is right here. That's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1 unit to the left. And now again, I have both of my points here. I'm going to extend them through, out, and then put arrows on the end of them. And I want you to notice, this point is not on the x-axis, right? So that is not an x-intercept. I have an x-intercept. It's somewhere in here. I just don't know what it is. I didn't find it. When you're in this form, the best thing to do is to use m, the slope, and b, the y-intercept. You've always got to start with the y-intercept because that's a point on the graph. And from there, you can apply the slope. If your slope happens to be an integer, like we did 4 and negative 5, then we would put it over 1 so we can think about rise over run. All right, I hope this helped you out some. Good luck in graphing your lines.